Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am JT Matthews, one of your hosts, and I'm here with the Dr. Nicholas Manning at _N_Manning on Twitter, and I'm at JTMatthews01 on Twitter if you want to find us and roll with us. Doc, how you doing today? Happy Wednesday. We had a couple weeks off, or a week off at least. That was my fault, really, but we're back and at it. And holiday was good. How was Thanksgiving for y'all?
Yeah, it was good. It was busy, but it was good. I think I ate like a regular amount of gluttony, so I didn't go overboard. It's good.
That's good. I mean, I think a lot of us went overboard. I don't actually think that I went too overboard. Usually on Thanksgiving it's tough because I go to my parents' house and then I come back to my wife's family's house, our family's house, and then eat 2 Thanksgiving meals. And I get excited about the first one, so I eat real good, and then I'm like, well, I got to eat the second one too.
Oh yeah.
And so then that night you just like the food coma hits and you feel guilty. But I think I did pretty good this year. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't overdo it. I got the staples in the first one, and then I cleaned up on the second one. So I think both of us together we had some good restraint. We didn't go overboard.
Yeah. I mean, we enjoyed ourselves, but I was able to get up out of my chair.
Well, yeah, you played some football, didn't you?
Oh yeah, played some football with Mile High Mario and some other friends, and then and then obviously sandwiched. I was able to attend 2 Bronco games in 8 days.
Yeah,
good time. One of those games, you were there.
I was there for the Monday night game against the Browns. We will talk about both of those, but let's start with CU. Today is National Signing Day, and the CU has quite a few commits. Some we were aware of, some new. I think everyone is excited about Julian Lewis. He's the 5-star recruit quarterback that transferred or is going to transfer from USC. Lots to be excited about there. Looking at their rivals, kind of that commitment page, got London Merritt, who appears to be a defensive end that is a 4-star defensive end. We got Adrian Wilson, a wide receiver, who's a 4-star receiver. Carde Smith, offensive tackle, 4-star. Another wide receiver, Quanell Farrakhan Jr. I don't know how to say that exactly. So a lot of guys to be excited about. It looks like this program's restocking. Looks like they're, according to the CU Sports Report, they have 15 total commits. Average star rating is 3.5. And Rivals National Recruiting ranked they're number 35. So overall, pretty good.
Yeah. For a team that intentionally it doesn't go through a whole bunch of resources at scouting and offering to young kids. Their mantra now is we want guys that can impact today, not ones that we're going to develop. And so their crop will usually be smaller, but they got some good ones. I mean, when you get a 5-star quarterback, you get 2, 3, right? 3, 4, no, 2 4-star receivers, another 4-star offensive lineman to book in Seton. Like, not bad. Not bad. I lied. There's multiple really good receivers. Legit, a legit edge presence. And then they got a linebacker today who's my man has been committed for a long time out of Georgia, 4-star linebacker. It's nice because they haven't really recruited even remotely to this level since Gary Barnett left, probably. CU's produced some NFL talent along the way, but they weren't securing 5 stars and what have you. So by the start of next year, I bet maybe there's the most 5-star recruits on a CU team since mid early 2000s, maybe. It's been a minute, as the kids say.
Yeah, that's Nathaniel Owusu Boateng target to watch from out of Michigan. Also one of 5-star that they're looking at. I'm excited. There's Jay Gardenhire, 3-star offensive tackle, 6'8", 350. A big old boy.
Yep.
Looks like they're putting some work into that offensive line, which is good. Mostly looks like tackles, but something obviously you got to.
Chauncey Gooden, 315-pound guard. Some pretty good players, and they've been smart. So they have a connection to IMG Academy, which is a sports factory, and so a couple of kids are now from that class. Last year there was a couple, and so if you really can't get connected with those, with those programs, like ain't no referral like a recommendation, right, or some support in that sense. So as long as Dion stays, I think they have the formula to continue to compete at a high level. And wait till transfer portal opens. They're probably going to rank at the top 5 in transfer portal impact. So it's cool. It's nice that CU is kind of on the opportunity for them to be a part of the conversation. Finishing strong, 52-0 blowout over Mike Gundy and his awful haircut. And so that was it's a good statement win, right? And they even sleptwalk through the second quarter.
They did.
Could have been 70. And so the one thing that I actually want to talk about before we move on really quick, sounds like Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter may or probably will play in the bowl game. Right. And it won't be a playoff game. I don't even know if it would be one of the alternate, like the Cotton Bowl or things like that aren't attached to the playoff, or maybe they will be. For those two guys to play in that game, if this were a decade ago, of course. But we've seen what can happen and, what the risk could be. What are your thoughts about that? Is Coach Prime, is he being negligent to, his son and a kid who's as close as him, son, and even Shiloh was a redshirt senior, so he'll move on. Having those guys participate and play in a bowl game that isn't going to get you much other than the experience. But thoughts on that? What do you think about them moving forward?
I'm always in favor of guys playing. I understand wanting to be safe. I get that. So I don't really fault guys for not playing when bowl games roll around. If you're not playing for a title or a chance at a title, then I understand sitting. However, at the same time, I think it's nice for you guys for those guys to finish up those. They're not going to come. I think a lot of guys will look at that opportunity to play a few more games with their college friends and teammates and colleagues, and may regret not doing that. And I think it'll be good for them to get out there, show what they have in one more game, kind of even if it's not an actual playoff scenario, a game that means something to them, to that program. And it helps kind of solidify a legacy. You want to be remembered as an all-time CU great. I think probably Shedeur and Travis are already there. But it certainly doesn't hurt. If you want to be remembered among the greatest, be remembered as a team player and a guy that goes out there and plays for his teammates. And I think that's what sounds like they're going to do. However, if they decide not to play, it's not. I don't see it as a negative for them. I see them being safe and kind of investing in themselves, and I'm fine with that. But I do like the fact that it sounds like they're going to play.
Yeah. I doubt that they play for the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Other guys will get some looks, but I think it goes to speak to those guys' character and the respect for Coach Prime, right? Now we're going to play the bowl game. Okay. All right, Coach. Just it's also a cool spot to be in. It's a pretty good team. Not going to make the bowl game, but we got top 5 talent in the NFL draft. Right? Them just being on the sidelines going to get see some good pub. So great finish. Hopefully they are in a relatively strong bowl game that gives some incentive. But this up and coming recruiting class is, I think, providing us with a little bit more hope that this this experiment with Coach Prime will be be something that will work.
Yeah, and I mean, you had your chance to kind of lock up a playoff spot potentially, and he ended up dropping the ball, and that's okay. It is what it is, and you got to move on, and they've got to look forward to the future. So, do you still see Travis Hunter as the favorite to win the Heisman, or do you think that 3 losses is too many for? Is it kind of like the MVP award, where if your team's not a top tier team, that you shouldn't get consideration?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think 9-3 is good enough. I think with with the respect of where they've came from, essentially those 2 kids with other folks, but those 2 kids catapulted the program to a doorstep of a championship playoff opportunity and playing for a Big 12 championship. So, that's kind of my take on it. I feel, feel pretty good about his chances. In the end, he's the best all around football player. And when you look at his rankings as a receiver, he's like top 10 in everything. And as a corner, is it like 4 or 5 picks, like a forced fumble to save again? Like he contributes all of the time. So I think Genty's had a phenomenal season. I think there's been some other guys who have been just really, really dynamic. That said, Travis Hunter impacts the game more than any other player right now in college football because, he lines up on both sides. So Shedeur doesn't have to have a great ball, and you feel really good about Travis Hunter coming down. So I assume that the Jaguars probably will screw this season up so bad that Travis will be playing down there, and I'll be a closet Jaguars fan, for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You never know. He could end up like being a Cowboy or something if they continue to lose. Well, I guess they've won two recently, so maybe not. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they land. Shedeur as well. Obviously, I keep dreading a scenario where he ends up with the Raiders. That's kind of either of those guys, really. That doesn't seem to be one of the programs. At least, maybe they would. Maybe Dion would advise them to not join that team, but I don't think so. That team's got a good history.
Not especially if Tom Brady's going to be there, and I think
that's true.
It's a different level of organization. They have a relationship, Shedeur and Tom do. So, that would suck, man.
Yeah, I agree. I like Shedeur a lot, so I'm hoping he doesn't.
Yeah, I do not want to have to root against you on a consistent basis. So.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's hit your Colorado Avalanche. Had a 5-4 victory yesterday. They started down 4 goals to 9.
That's 4 goals and 8 shots.
Yeah.
Borgie.
Goaltending is such. Oh man, we'll get into it, but it's just like they got to do something. But regardless, they came back. They had a 1 goal in the second period, and then 4 goals in the third to give them the win late. Nathan McKinnon was all-star, playing at all-star level, 2 goals and assist. Logan O'Connor showed up. He had a goal and assist. Calvin DeHaan, 2 assists. Sammy Girard, Kivi Ranta, Lehkonen had both had goals. Girard had an assist. Man, they're looking frisky. If nothing else, they're 14-12. They're in the hunt. It's another. It's kind of weird. Them and the Nuggets are kind of in the same spot, which is like on the edge of contention. Kind of in one game they look really great. The next game they look really terrible, or at least they look like they have some major weaknesses, if not overall.
Yep.
But the goaltending. I mean, at this point, is there any doubt that they need to make some sort of move at goaltender?
No, I mean, they did. So they traded your guy, Justus Annunen,
and then
for Wedgwood, who's a career backup, steady guy. I heard Bednar's interview after the game and was talking about how they needed more positivity and positive energy in the locker room, and this is a guy that brings it. So I don't know if Annunen's like whining because he's not getting playtime, or they the goalies don't help each other, or I don't know what they were insinuating, but it seems like maybe Gorgie needs like an older brother in that room to feel secure. Like a little worried about what the hell we're doing here while taking on more cap hit. Gave away the cheaper player with the draft pick to get a marginal goalie at best and add salary. Hopefully that's raising the floor. But yeah, there's got to be, if this team wants to win a championship, this is terrible. We thought we went through some ups and downs with Darcy Kemper, right? And it was like, good Darcy or bad Darcy. You guys showed up in the playoffs, won a cup, all the good things. Gorgie has, I think his confidence or something, like, it's just gone, dude.
Yeah,
doesn't feel like he can stop a puck, and literally can't. Can't stop a puck. It's just, it's mind-boggling.
To do, man.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't understand. I mean, I understand the move to get, maybe they weren't high on it and then someone else was. Felt like they needed a better veteran presence, Sprout and Wedgwood. I'm all for that. I'm hoping that's not the answer, though. I'm hoping that the answer is that they still make some sort of change. It just feels like, and Wedgwood played good last night. He had a shutout. As soon as he got in the game, nothing got past him. Had 22 saves. He'll have an opportunity to kind of earn that starting job, I would assume. I don't know if he'll say that out loud as much, but I don't think that it's any secret that, they're trying to shake things up in that room. So I obviously I'm rooting for any and all of our goaltenders to perform well. It's always better when the guys that you have on the roster show up and do their job at an elite level. But it feels like right now they still have another move or two to kind of get to that competitive level that they want to get to.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you don't have to go get all-star caliber goalie, but you got to get. It's bad, man. It's bad. Yeah. It's like watching the Rockies bullpen come in and preserve a lead. Like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing here? But I trust the front office. Seth MacFarlane and Joe Sakic continued to. They made great moves, I think, the last couple of years, especially in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they do again. And this is a slow running team right now, but nothing would make me feel like they're not going to make it to the postseason. And then once you get in, it's the home ice advantage isn't the same as home field advantage in football for sure, basketball potentially, even less than baseball, right? Where it's just which you wouldn't think that adrenaline and hitting and all that stuff, but the numbers kind of bear it out. So I expect a move. I'm screaming for a move, and like, please don't go get a fourth line winger instead, like that. Let's just stay in our lane.
I mean, and a lot still remains to be seen with Landeskog. We'll see what ends up happening there. Perhaps you get either a boost from him being back, or are able to use some of that money depending on what happens with him. And just a reminder to fans, we still have a very effective offense. Our top line is still maybe one of the best in the NHL, if not the best. Nathan McKinnon has 39 points. He's tied for the lead in the NHL. Mikko Rantanen's number 5 in the league, scoring with 35 points. Still, they're still an elite line. They still have elite players. So I think, you get through this season, it may be a bit of a slog compared to other seasons. But give yourself a chance, get to the show and see what happens. I think that this team, there's a lot of members of this team that are tested in the playoffs and have that experience and have that ability to keep pushing and maybe surprise some people. Or maybe it won't be surprising. We'll see how they start playing down the stretch here. But I think overall, as long as we get some solid goaltending, we should start seeing them win some games. They play the Hurricanes tomorrow.
Do you think that this last game is do you think that is a catalyst game? Do you think that maybe that is a game like, all right, like we're back, boys? Or do you not have confidence that they are ready to pounce on the opportunity yet?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. There's just so many games left. I think I would like to think that it would be a catalyst game. I tend to think, like, I remember watching a number of games last year where we would get behind and then we'd come back and win, and you just keep thinking, like, they can't keep doing this. And really, they kind of did it all season. But once you get to the playoffs, once you get to the playoffs, that doesn't work anymore, or at least not to the same degree. You might be able to pull out 1 or 2 games, maybe one in a series where you're down big or down by multiple goals. But really, you've got to be competitive from the jump when you get to the playoffs. So I think it's gonna. Yeah, I think you gotta do something about the goaltending situation. You have to have someone reliable back there who is going to keep you in games. If your team's not clicking on all cylinders coming out the gate, someone who's going to maybe allow 1 goal instead of 2 or 3 or more. In the first period, if you get off to a slow start, then you don't have to. Then you're not having to scramble and push.
Yep.
Okay, I speak for all Colorado fans and say it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want George. I don't even know how to say Georgie on the team. Yeah, I agree. Let's wave him. I'm down. I mean,
is it at a phase where it's like unload him for a pack of peanuts, or I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the market is.
Like, what do they see in him that it's like? But where you're watching him play, right? Like, I don't know how he practices, but when the games go that matter, he's not good.
Yeah, and it's not like we're 26 games into the season. You're starting goaltender for 26 games. It's still early in the season for sure. But how much time do you need? Though. Yeah, how many games do you need to see before you start to feel like this isn't just an outlier? This isn't just a mental issue. This is something beyond that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I'm fine with them cutting losses, and if that's the way they decide to go. Otherwise, keep him in as a backup or a third string guy, but you got to bring someone else in.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to your Denver Nuggets, who got a nice win last night. Also a comeback win. They were down, I don't remember, about 10. I think 10 with about 3.5 minutes to go.
4 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Ended up beating the Golden State Warriors, who were 12-7 going into that game. Now are 12-8. Nuggets are 11-8 now. I mean, what can you say? Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, and it's not even close. I mean, I think he had 38, 10-7, or 10-6. Just absurd numbers again. Getting to the line, which was nice. Dominating. I think he had at least 14 points in the fourth quarter, if not 16. Dude was an animal and came through clutch. I think he shot 3 for 4 from 3-point range. So that 3-point percentage is still just maintaining. It's not climbing. Yeah. So thoughts on the game? Did you get to watch it? Any feels on how that game went?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, I didn't know that he had another switch. Wow. And so I'm super pumped about that. Like, oh wow, the best player in the sport is in his bag. And the confidence he's shooting with. The other take I have, is Aaron Gordon needs to be more aggressive. I am concerned with, I think, the desire to spot up from the corner all the time.
Yeah.
Or often. And so you really need those guys to be able to do the right thing, because the Nuggets are minus 19 yesterday when he wasn't on the floor. And part of it is people settle for crap shots, get guys in foul trouble, play physical, it's just that part's a little mind-boggling. Hope everyone comes back with stuff. And then my final thought is, at what point, people are really frustrated with Jamal Murray, and I think his inconsistent play. And I, as a Jamal guy, I love Jamal. I feel it now too. Is he the second best player on this team? Because I don't see it. Not right now. Obviously, we've seen elite him, but really, we had the bubble and we had a series or 2 in the championship run. It wasn't the entire playoff run. So that's my concern. Maybe is this team better with Russ at the point? Maybe you move Jamal to the 2 and then Brown to, I don't even know, because I right now Brown is a more consistent player, and especially on defense. So, am I being dramatic, or is there something there that you see that's concerning too?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about it last night and just kind of how the season's gone. We're so used to talking about and thinking about and seeing the two-man game with Jamal and Jokic, and it's kind of been invisible this year. There's been moments, but that's not like this is something that they've done in the championship run, something they went to all the time.
9 years. Like they've been together for a long time.
Yeah, and for some reason this season it doesn't seem to be as prevalent. I don't know if that is has to do with trying to get the pace of the game up a little bit. I know that's something that they've been focusing on, is trying to get the ball up the court a little bit faster. I think they've been scoring a lot more in transition, which is nice. I do think that is a change that they needed to make. But man, yeah, that two-man game, it just doesn't seem to be the same staple that it was. It seems like it's just throw it down to Jokic, and then whoever makes the best cut gets open, has the most open shot, gets the ball, but it's not like an intentional, like we're going to go to this two-man game between Jokic and Murray. And I don't know if that is, a coaching thing. I don't know if that's something that they're not calling from the sideline. I don't know if that has to do with a comfort level with Jamal. And maybe him trying to kind of impose his will a little bit on the game more so than he has in the past. It is a little bit baffling, and obviously I will tend to give Jamal Murray the benefit of the doubt just because he's shown to be, he can be clutch. I mean, he was the most clutch person the last two playoff runs probably, even to some degree over Nikola Jokic with some just big monster shots down the stretch of some games. So I don't want to say that that's gone because I don't know that we can actually say that. But at the same time, I think it's completely understandable if fans are concerned. And I'm concerned too. He just doesn't seem to have the same chemistry. He doesn't seem to have the same ability to play make that he did. And his shooting's been inconsistent. So if people are frustrated, I certainly get it.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that something comes back. I mean, to me, it's got to be something mental, man. Like he struggled in the Olympics. He's, struggled outside of a couple big shots in the playoffs last year. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint because we're not there, but I feel like there has to be. Like Jamal Murray didn't forget how to play basketball, but his confidence, right? Because confidence adds to aggression, which adds to dictating the floor instead of having the defense dictate to you. So I hope that we get an opportunity to see good Jamal here relatively soon. Without him being the second best player, the championship window is closed. Could they overcome? Could they? I don't know. It's like I don't want them to. Like I don't want Aaron Gordon to feel like he has to be a 25-point night guy, or Michael Porter Jr. You see what happens when we overload his plate, right? Like right now he's playing good, efficient basketball, shooting the ball really well. He's not as lost on defense. I think just keeping it simple for him. But now if it's like, all right, everyone else has to score 5 more points a game because Jamal can't figure it out, the Nuggets will be in a tough spot for sure.
Yeah, and I like the things that Michael Porter Jr. has done to enhance his game. He's moving the ball a little bit better. I wouldn't say that he's a great facilitator by any means, but he's being advantageous in those situations where he's a little overmanned. And I think it's nice to see him grow his bag a little bit. It's not just 3-point shooting. He can drive and he can pull up for a floater. He had a floater in that. I think it was against the Mavericks not too long ago. That was the game.
Oh yeah.
I'm liking what I'm seeing from him, but yeah, I mean, I think if you don't have a legit number 2 that you can count on next to Jokic, the regular season's okay. You'll probably be fine, and you'll be in contention. You'll make the playoffs,
right?
But to advance,
but that's not the expectation, right? Like the expectation is
going to be tough.
Playoffs. Yeah, expectation is to win, and Strother's got to figure out how to play defense. it's great that you were, good at getting to the hoop or hitting a three, which he wasn't really this last game. But you can't be a liability. The NBA is too good, right? They will find you and exploit you, and then the opposing team's on an 8-0 run because they were smart and figured out who to attack. So it's a little weird. Just probably the two best teams in the state. When it comes to, I mean, probably anything right now, right? Like just talent wise, are the two that are struggling the most. And you hope that gets turned around, but guys got to start showing up, and that starts with Jamal. So, Jamal, I'm not calling you out, I'm inviting you in. If you need anything, you holler at your boy. If anyone knows Jamal, let him know. I do coaching, like life. I got you, dog. We'll get it fixed, get you moving, because we need you. And I think you will. I think he's a tougher dude than maybe some of us think. And I hope he utilizes that toughness to kind of get through it.
Yeah. And I think that, again, it's early in the season, same amount of games essentially in the NHL and NBA. So it's early. And I think just as a caveat, this Western Conference is tough, man. Like top to bottom, it's probably as good as it's ever been. Only 1, 2, 3, 4 teams are under 500 in the West, which is pretty crazy. So I think that it's important to kind of point that out. Nuggets are hanging in there with some really good teams. Warriors are hot. They've been on a losing streak lately. But that's a team that is going to push you every night. And so it's nice to see them compete. I think that if they can hang in there, just give them a little more time, maybe they can turn it around a little bit and string together some nice wins. They got a chance to they're playing the Cavaliers tomorrow night. Looks like 5 p.m. That's the top record in the NBA. They're a 3-loss team. They're 19-3. You need a statement win, early on. That's a good opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. It's they had an opportunity for that to be a catalyst also. We'll see if it gets there. Real quick question from Simrat Sohi. I'm assuming we're referring to Paolo
Banchero.
Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks. So injury. So he should be back about now or maybe in a couple more weeks. So tore oblique, I recall. So I think it's a 4 to 6 week injury. So hopefully the Magic get the second best player back on their team outside of Gary Harris.
Oh, you mean third with the KCP there?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Let's switch gears now and talk about your Denver Broncos. We didn't get to talk about the Raiders game, so I'm going to let you just kind of wax poetic on that one since you were present for that win. Just your takeaways from that game, what you saw, and what you liked.
Well, a couple things. One, if we thought that we have had it bad or feel bad for ourselves as Bronco fans, sitting in their stadium, like 60% Bronco fans again, or 50, no less than 40%, that's for sure. And you just didn't even have energy enough to like banter. They showed up knowing that they were going to lose. This is from people. I'm not interpreting this. This is, I just want it to be a close game. Like you got to a place now where it's and I know hopefully draft picks, blah, 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 but to hope that your team is competitive week in and week out. It's not like, against Baltimore or Kansas City, like, all right, we're turning a corner. Let's keep it competitive and we'll feel really good about, rolling into next year. It's like, no, like just against anybody. So what I did notice, Cortland Sutton again on a tear. I did it again this Monday, but as for that Sunday, him and Bo Nix connection is just it's stellar. It's fantastic right now. And so I really like what they're able to do. Defensively, really kind of won the game. That said, it was hard to know because it was Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ridder. And they were pretty fortunate with that matchup. The negative piece probably is Brock Bowers is going to be a effing problem for a really long time. Yeah, if they get another outside threat where you can't just automatically double Bowers or put Surtain on him, then it's going to be a rocky road for sure. Yeah, that's my guy. Gosh dang it. But I no longer have regrets. Like, nope, Bo Nix is the right pick. For as sexy as it would have been to have Brock Bowers for the next decade, tearing up the league, got to have someone throwing him the ball. And the Broncos, I think, found their guy. So it was a pretty gutsy, ugly-ish win last week in Vegas, but their first win ever in Las Vegas. First series sweep, I think, since 2016.
Yeah.
So, like, getting over demons a little bit. And I think, they got the Kansas City monkey off their back last year. Winning games that they haven't usually. And so that was this Monday night. That usually is a game that Broncos teams in yesteryear would have found a way to not win. So felt really good in Vegas. And stacking up another conference win, and the defense was really the story of that game. The Raiders really didn't have much of an opportunity to do much, and the Broncos just had to do enough, and Bo Nix did, and they delivered. The running game was terrible.
Yep,
it was just how Bo Nix is playing as well as he is without the complement of a consistent running team support. Running game. Let's go running game. What the? I don't even know what that just was. To me, is like even more phenomenal. He's doing it with, he doesn't have the Bears skill players, right? DeAndre Swift. And you got dear goodness, Caleb.
Yeah. DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. You got Cole Kmet, who's phenomenal. Even Jane Daniels, he's got Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz, and there's some bodies, and we're throwing to Devon Vele and Lucas Kroll.
Yeah.
Just good players, but it's not the same, and their quarterback's playing really well. So entered the game on Monday night, chance to go 8-5, which obviously is the best record the Broncos have had at this juncture since 2016, where essentially they choked away the playoffs.
Yep.
One, maybe before we go to the game, walking into the game yesterday or Monday, were you looking forward to it? Like what was your internal vibe on where this team was, how it felt to be in the stadium? Like, was there a direction or a feel of it? Just kind of want to get your Warshak thoughts. Inkblot, go.
Yeah. I think it was a good game to have before the bye if you win, but if you lose, it's a really tough game to have before the bye week. And so it felt like they needed to lock in and win that game. You kind of hoped it would be a little prettier than it was. We'll get into the details of that. But that was kind of my feel, is like, this is a team a 3-win team that you need to make a statement against. This is your chance to kind of get on the national TV broadcast and put together some important drives and kind of dominate this game. And that's kind of what I was looking for. I wanted to see them kind of stifle the running game of the Browns, because they have Nick Chubb, who is coming back from recent injury, but is still an effective running back. Their offensive line's pretty good. Ultimately, I think a lot of people think, since Jameis has taken over, this doesn't look like a 3-win team. This looks like a team that should be more competitive than they are. So I felt like it was a good opportunity for the Broncos to kind of go into the bye week with some nice momentum. But on the opposite side, it felt a little, I wouldn't say like a trap game, because you're not going into a game the next week, but it felt like a game that if you drop it, man, the playoff picture gets a lot more fuzzy.
Yep. Yeah. It was one of those, like, you're danged if you do, danged if you don't, right? Like, that really you're expected to win, like all that stuff. And I think playing as the favorite, which this team hasn't really been in a while, they have much more as of late. And so you have different expectations now, right? The whole nation is like, they're going to, Broncos are going to win. And they have to, right? Because the rest of the season, the way it stacks up versus the Colts, who are kind of the nearest competition for 7th and final wildcard spot, they're after Denver, they should walk through their last 3 games. And so you couldn't give up ground, especially at home against a 3-win team. I was expecting, I think I walked in maybe a little false bravado of like absolute domination. And
yeah,
you didn't get that. Did not get that. But the next best thing that you got is grit, right? Like things did not go well, especially on defense. Bo throws 2 picks. Not, both aren't his fault, but picks nonetheless. Like it was just a sloppy game in terms of having just a real good rhythm and playing complementary football. And they still won by 2 scores. That's what good teams do. When Kansas City, that's how annoying they are, right? They find a way to win. Ref aided, but still they figure out how to get a win anyway. So, but I was never at a point during that game where I was like, oh, they might lose. I didn't have that feeling. It didn't really creep in, even when they were losing by 1. I think I had a brief thought of like, man, that would suck if we drove out here for this. That's like the guy left. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I think it's a good opportunity for Bo Nix to get his first fourth quarter comeback, which is such a vague stat.
Sure.
And that part felt good. So all in all, it kind of met my expectations. But now let's break down the game just a little bit. What was your take on Bo and his performance in yesterday's game or Monday's game? When I say yesterday, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think that Bo did some nice things. I think it's funny that you feel like within the Broncos sphere or within Broncos Twitter or whatever it is, there's this feeling that Bo Nix doesn't throw the ball down the field enough. That he's still just part of kind of the system and is a dink and dunk kind of guy, which I think part of that is true. I think Sean Payton's offense is very much, different sets, kind of trying to capitalize on matchups, getting guys up on the perimeter that have some speed, that have some ability to make plays. But I don't see whatever that narrative is that people are pushing. I see Bo Nix pushing the ball down the field, not just the dime that he threw to Mims for 92 yards. Obviously, that was the highlight of that game. But just they worked the perimeter of the field well. They kind of worked down that sideline. Cortland had a few plays across the middle where he was wide open. There was no concern for me with both throwing it down the field. I heard it before the game Monday, but something about third down conversions. I think like his average passing attempt on a third down conversion is like 18 plus yards, something like that. So it's like obviously that he's throwing the ball down the field. I think he showed his arm in that game with a few deep tries. Obviously, the one got picked, and then the other one was the 92-yard dime. Still not really a terribly thrown ball, in my opinion, on the pick, but just a little overthrow. But I don't know. I think that obviously it wasn't his best game. I don't know that you can fault him for that first pick, really. Just kind of was, batted up into the air and kind of up for grabs. However, he's got to make better reads. At times he's got to find open receivers a little bit more at times. But overall, he threw a few balls away. I always like that when a guy's feeling like, hey, the play broke down. Let's take it as it is and move on. Shows a short memory. He's not going to be reflecting kind of on those bad plays. He's just going to move forward. And I think that is really something that I value with him so far, is that the play breaks down. He doesn't try and force it too often. Every once in a while he will. It kind of gets him in trouble on occasion. Fortunately, the other defenses haven't been too opportunistic on it. But just kind of that short memory, that mental toughness, that ability to kind of go out and execute has been really nice. And in the game on Monday, he had to that defense is tough. That defense has some good players. They have a lot of speed. They have one of the best pass rushers on the planet. And I think overall he held up pretty well.
Yeah. What I really liked is he just seems more decisive. Like we talked about, the game has slowed down quite a bit for him, and I'm super excited about that because I think now you get the full experience of the player when they're just able to play and not worrying about kind of about what's going on here or what's going on there. It looks like he understands the offense, what's expected of him, because everything just seems quicker, which to do it by your what game around 13th game, and being able to put a string really of 5 strong outings in a row, that's pretty remarkable. And hopefully the game Monday night, I think, pushed back on that narrative of he's those bubble screens all the time, which wasn't the case if you actually watched anything about him play. They did that. That's Oregon's offense, but he also rip it. And watching him utilize the middle of the field, I thought was just phenomenal. It wasn't his cleanest game, but I really like how he comes up clutch. We talked about that for Jamal and things like that. When you're a quarterback, when you believe in your quarterback, and the fact that it hasn't went his way most of the time, we're in this game, but we need to go get a score. You still feel pretty good about the guy pulling the trigger, because of what he's been able to do and endure. And so I am really pleased with Bo, even though it cost us Brock Bowers, you son of a. But it's great to see. He is on pace right now for 3,700 yards. I think 22 touchdowns and 9 or 10 interceptions to finish the season. That's it's not too shabby, and only up from there. I think some more positives are Cortland Sutton. Man, welcome back. This 2019 court, even in the midst of a drop, in the first drive that you want to have back, and kind of a brain lapse running a backside route. But even after both of those plays happened, Bo Nix went right back to him, and Cortland made the play. And so we had talked a lot about moving on from Sutton, maybe trade him with all the, with all the demands for his contract. I don't see how you can let him leave now.
Right.
I think, you got all the young kids back. I think Court has proven he is a football playing Jesse, and it's really I'm glad that he gets to be on a team that appreciates him and that is winning. He hasn't been a part of a winning Bronco team ever. He's had really spotty at best quarterback play. So, the best quarterback play in some time. Russ played pretty well last year. And again, then Court had 10 touchdowns. If he gets some good quarterback play, he's going to play really well. So that was some of my positive takeaways. Jaleel.
Yeah.
Nice. And I love Javonte. I appreciate you, dog. I'm sorry that your knee hurt. And, the sledding has been really difficult coming back, but I don't see how you can keep handing the ball off to Javonte when you saw the performance that Jaleel had. He ran tough. He actually broke some tackles. He was decisive. You saw his creativity in the kind of cutback across the grain on that big run. And Estime doesn't get tackled in the backfield. So it's you got 2 of those pieces already right now. Outside of pass pro, I don't know what else you would need Javonte for, which sucks. And I hope that he figures it out and gets back. But this run game really has to get better. Super concerned about their inability. There's a couple of times where they had 2nd and 1 or 3rd, and then they ain't getting it. And that can't be, I think, when the playoffs come, and really it's going to be huge to be able to stay on the field, right? It's going to be more, every inch is a little bit more difficult. This run game has to start picking up. And I think the bye week comes at a really good time. You're right, high into the break, but it's going to give the coaches, I think, an opportunity to really discuss, how do we reset this? Because, the Chargers have a really good defense. that's gonna be pretty difficult. The Colts have good players, DeForest Buckner, etc., on defense, so they're not going to be a walk in the park. Kansas City, we've seen, has a good defense. Cincinnati doesn't, but they have talent, and it's on the road, and you're going against Joe Burrow, who is like an absolute flamethrower right now. Let's not be the team that they finally beat. When you give up, when their team gives up 30 or whatever. So offensively, that's kind of where I'm putting my concern buckets. What are your thoughts? Do you have different concerns, same concerns? What's your take just offensively from what we saw on Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team, I think that there still has to be some growth in the running game, but I do like the emergence of McLaughlin kind of finally kind of putting a stamp on a game. That I think is important. And Javonte, like you were saying, Javonte, I'd love for Javonte to pop off and have kind of look like Javonte of old. I just don't know how much longer we have to wait for that and if it's never going to come to fruition. I think there were some things. It just feels like we're maybe one piece away from having a really dominant offense or having the ability to be a really dominant offense. But I think that's probably one more receiver or big tight end threat. Cortland, obviously that chemistry is there. It's something that is going to continue to build and grow as they kind of age together, and maybe hopefully will be a really good dynamic duo for a while. But I think that if you can get a really good number 2 guy to come in and just kind of take some of that weight off and be a little more consistent than some of the guys that we're kind of relying on now, saying that knowing that 2 of those guys are rookies, so there's obviously opportunity for growth from both of those players. But yeah, it just feels like we're on the edge of being a really good offensive team. I just think that there are a few more little steps they need to take to get there. And it's going to take an emergence from someone this season, or it's going to take, bringing in some new blood and some new talent, either via draft or free agency, to kind of get to that next level. But overall, I mean, it's way better than what I was expecting coming into the season, to be honest. I think we were both fairly optimistic on the season, but understood that, like, hey, this is a growth year for Bo. If we win 5 games, but Bo looks like he's improving and can handle playing the NFL, then that's good. But, I think there's still a little more growth to be had, and I think there's just some more comfortability that needs to be found within this offensive system.
Yep. Yeah, and hopefully it's there, right? So outside of Garrett Bowles, the entire starting offensive line is under contract next year. And so you have Cortland, who is under contract for 1 more year with no guarantees. So really the potential, I think, of losing some starters is Troutman.
Yeah.
Bowles, Javonte.
Yep.
And like offensively, I think that's it with real contributors.
Yeah.
And so that continuity, I would expect even more effective and efficient football next year. So I agree wholeheartedly with that. Really quick before I jump in to make another point, what do you think about what Cam posted? Do both of those guys deserve extensions from the Broncos? Maybe they do, not right now. Kind of what's your take on that before I roll through my next point?
Yeah, I mean, I would be more willing to give Sutton an extension now for a decent amount of time. We're talking 3 or 4 years. If we were going down that route, for sure, I would definitely be in favor of that, considering he'll be coming up on a contract year. Bowles, I think he's played well. I don't want to say anything negative about the way that he's played. I just don't know. I think you can get more from someone in that position. I think you need at some point to kind of invest in that position in the draft. I just think it's important that you lock down someone affordable and young that has some upside. I mean, you see a guy like Trent Williams, that goes out and is such a difference maker for a team. It's just like, I know that guy specifically is hard to find, but I think you've got to invest in that position, and you've got to find ways to cut costs. You can't pay everyone that plays well for a season or 2.
Right.
I think the the journey with Bulls has been really up and down.
Yep.
He's had some near Pro Bowl play, and then he's had some really terrible play in the middle there too. So it's just, I'd like to find someone with a little more consistency, someone that you can kind of invest in a little more long term, someone that can kind of be a cornerstone for Bo as he develops into hopefully a star.
Yeah, when you look at the list of potential free agent left tackles next year, Cam Robinson, Ronnie Stanley, Tyrone Smith, Cornelius Lucas, Kelvin Beachum, TJ Humphries, Jalen Moore, and DeMontre Jacobs. So my feeling is if you're going to replace Garrett, it ain't in that.
Yeah.
It's you bring in a vet, sure. But maybe you hope that Palczewski is that guy already. The right tackles it's about the same. There just isn't a big push for that, but it's a good draft, I think, in my opinion, for grabbing a tackle or a developmental tackle. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Before we move to defense, do you think so? Josh Reynolds released this morning, so he's going to get the rest of his guaranteed money. When you're a vested veteran, you're on the roster after the first week or starting the first week. The rest of your base salary is all guaranteed. So the Broncos have released him. A couple things. One, hopefully he is okay. There's scary stuff about being able to kind of go through something that traumatic and then like stay in the town still. I wouldn't have blamed him if that's a major reason why he's no longer here. That said, the Broncos are missing a key component to their team, right? He hasn't played since week 5. And really was like an okay player. And so I like where they're at. And I bet that was the conversation of, hey, we can activate you, but you're not going to get much time. We were like, what we going on here? And I think they did right by him, allowing him to get back on the market and latch on. So hopefully that is, good juju that the team's putting out in there, put out in the atmosphere to get some back, the reputation of an organization, how you treat people is important. So, so that all of that to say, I don't think that will push the defense. On the other hand, going into the game yesterday or Monday night, super excited. Leaving the game Monday night, a little worried. You'd rather have a lot of crap to fix after a win than a lot of crap to fix after a loss. And giving the defense credit, they did put 14 points up on the board, 12 minus the extra points, but they're responsible for 2 touchdowns, which isn't nothing. And then Martin, with a pick in the end zone to seal it. Essentially that's 21 points in that swing. So they did what they needed to do. But the game plan was awful, or the execution was awful. Levi being matched up on Judy just should never happen again. And the Browns did a really good job of moving Jerry around to free up his release, to get him off of Pat and onto someone else. Nice job. And so, like Sean Payton said, we got to figure that out. It can't be, we don't have our best player on him. That's what the rest of you get paid for. So I think that they'll come out with a better game plan over the last 4 weeks after the bye. So I think it comes at a really good time. But watching Nick Benito, number 2 in the NFL in sacks, pick 6, right? I think this kid was almost a bust, or the word was pretty that, and the fact now that maybe he is a real cornerstone, next to Pat Surtain, which I think is just crazy to say a little bit. Wow, we found some dudes. And so I think that they'll roll it back in. It was difficult watching Jerry Jeudy explode like he's never played in his life, probably. Good for him.
Yeah.
But my confidence is still there with this defense. While also understanding, I think there's limitations still. They're still not all the way there. Don't have a real dynamic interior pass rush. I think your linebackers are suitable, but no game changers there. And really, we don't have a lot of, I think, playmakers in the sense of interceptions all that kind of stuff. Big sack time, I think, outside of Benito. That isn't where we're at right now, and that's all right. They play really good collective D. So what's your thoughts just on the defense from what you saw, and then kind of our outlook for the rest of the year?
Yeah. So defensively, I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say Nick Benito is our second best defensive player at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when you have a team that kind of plays collective defense, there's a lot of guys that are contributing. But I think Benito has obviously shown an ability to get to create pressure, ability to get to the opposing team's quarterback. And obviously he's a little bit of a ball hawk, which I didn't know, until he actually dropped into coverage. And I was reading Jameis's eyes. It was nice to see. Yeah, nice to see his athleticism kind of pop outside of just rushing the passer. So, I'm impressed with the defense overall. Riley Moss is a huge loss, obviously. I think once you get past him and into kind of the reserve cornerbacks, it's dicey. We saw that. I think they said with Wallace matched up on Judy, I think he gave up over 150 yards of offense, just himself alone. So, and Pat Surtain gave up something like 9 or something like that in like
it's 2 catches for 20 yards. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. So obviously, we need to get Moss back and healthy. That's something that's going to be important down the stretch here. Makes me worry a little bit that he may be a little injury prone throughout his career since it's 2 years and 2 injuries. Though, this one looked worse on the field than it turned out to be, which was good. I enjoy this defense. I'm glad that I kind of like the collective win sometimes a little bit more than kind of your 1 or 2 superstars in the way. It is a fun way to win. I will say in last game, it did feel a bit old school. Like we're going to play our defense and they're going to have to adjust to us. And that didn't work very well. So I would like to see a little more flexibility from Vance. If you're getting beat by the same guy, just match Surtain up with him. Let's move him around. He's a good enough cornerback that if you give him an assignment, he's gonna do okay.
The adjustment wasn't there. And I don't know if that's, maybe it's harder to keep a guy on another guy throughout. Sure. But were we rolling coverage? Like there was blown assignments, right? Like Jerry's, I think, second catch is coming on an over route. There's no one within 20 yards of him. In any direction. How is that happening?
That was wild.
It's
right after that dime too.
Yeah. So I like this defense too. I'm excited about where they're going. I think there's some really good progress. Riley Moss getting back. Who would have thought, right? Beginning of the year, like Riley Moss is a linchpin to the defensive success. That's an awesome place to be. So I think that this team will begin to trend up again. And there isn't a team, I think, outside of Cincinnati, right? So I think the other 3 games, they match up really well defensively. And so I don't think any of the teams will get away from them. Cincinnati offense, they put points on everybody so far. So I'm not going to be as brash to say, but this team's different after they just gave up 600 yards of offense to Jameis Winston and the Browns. So I think they'll be improved, but they need to, right? And especially if that defense can travel into the playoffs, which this team is, I'm not going to say it yet, is trending towards. To make a statement, the defense has to show up for sure.
Yeah. Just kind of a finishing thought on the Broncos in general. Every loss we've had is to a current playoff team. We lost the Chiefs 11-1. Steelers are the third seed right now. Chargers are 5th seed. Ravens are 6th seed. Seahawks are 3rd seed.
Yeah.
Is that everyone? I think that's all of them.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
You're beating the teams you're supposed to beat, and that's something that we haven't done for a long time. And so I think, if nothing else, you're beating the teams that you should beat in a given season, the teams that you feel like you are better than. And I think that's huge progress with a rookie quarterback. I think that's super important. It shows kind of it is a little tricky getting an older quarterback out of the draft, but these are the scenarios I think you find yourself in where you have tight games and you can win those tight games with a guy who has some seasoning. And so I think it's been a really obviously great addition for the Broncos, but I think it bodes well for their future. And I think, just something that you can hang your hat on when you get to the end of the season. Hey, we beat all the teams we were supposed to beat. We got another step to go potentially. But this is a team, you get to the playoffs, you're feeling a little frisky. Maybe they get a game. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just maybe to add to your point, I think that was a phenomenal catch. So of their 5 losses, right, to Seattle, 6 points. Pittsburgh, 7 points. The Chargers, 7 points. Baltimore was the one game that got away, right, 41-10. But we know at halftime it should have been 17-14. And if it's that tight,
for sure,
instead of 21-10, that game's probably significantly different. But that's the one goose egg. And then the Kansas City loss by 2 points, 14-16. And so, really, that Baltimore, let's hope we miss them. That's a really bad matchup for this team.
It looks like right now we will. So
yeah. And so really, it's you got to feel pretty good about their ability to do that. So great observation, sir. And with that, I'll let you adjourn us for the day.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we'll be rooting. I think we'll have to root for the Chiefs this week because they play the Chargers. So as hard as it is for me, I'm working on getting that better seating. So, but thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. We're here most Wednesdays, if not every Wednesday, for the foreseeable future. Aside from maybe the holiday week, but we enjoy doing this with y'all and breaking down all of the college sports teams. Tune in next week. We'll be here talking about an upcoming game against the Indianapolis Colts, who are right behind us in the chase. Kind of an important one to go and lock down. So we'll get into that a little bit, and we'll see how our other teams are doing in the meantime. But we appreciate you. Hope to see you next week. And remember, if you need a sports prescription, ask a doctor.
For sure.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute. Work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted.